I would like to please welcome you all on stage here, and let's start the discussion. Maybe we do a little panel discussion here, and then we will open up as well for questions for everybody. So please come up, and maybe I just sit in the middle. So please prepare also for some questions if you have any. So, digitalization of the energy system. It looks to me that the energy sector is one of the last sectors actually developing in this space to be a bit more digitalized. I don't know if this is the right observation. We have moved from a very central energy system with very few coal power stations, few nuclear power stations, a bit more gas power stations, into a world of more renewable energy-based systems. We have now more than 1.6 million power systems in Germany, opposed to a few hundreds before. And those 1.6 million power systems are small solar rooftop systems, are wind energy systems, are maybe as well some heating devices in our basements. So the world becomes a bit more complicated, it looks to me. So maybe we just start the first round of questions that maybe everybody of you tells the audience, what is your contribution of well, supporting this development, and what are your opportunities? Maybe Philipp, you can start with Thermondo.
Well, thank you. Yeah. So, like you said, I mean, the world really goes distributed. It goes small. It goes decentralized, and the decision maker thus is not anymore a large utility that then allocates billions of euros or dollars to capex, if you want, to hardware. Because no longer E.ON or Vattenfall, the large utilities, building large power plants, but it's in Germany the 15.3 million one and two family home owners. And they have one power system in place, and that's the heating system. So it's actually 1.6 million for power, for electricity, and in addition you have roughly 20 million heating systems in Germany. So we went for that market first, and we thought that's a good anchor to be a significant player or become a significant player in this new distributed energy world, because it's a large existing market and it's very fragmented. It was very intransparent. Pricing was intransparent. It was very much an offline-driven market. And obviously, our proposal to the market is to deliver a very beautiful customer journey, which combines the best of two worlds. So the scalability of the digital world, the processes, the metrics, and the reliability, and at the same time we combine it with real people from your regions, speaking your dialect, and delivering an end-to-end branded experience, and thus sell a very large ticket to you. Our average ticket is 8,200 euros that we sell to our customers on the first sale, and then we have quite a nice after-sales business too.
Yeah, well, Taro is a company focused on the residential sector. We have the vision to make heating systems and air conditioning systems smart. As you know, heating accounts for more than a third of global energy consumption. And we do this by offering intelligent climate management. So essentially, it's a three-layered approach. First, we have smart thermostats to bring your ACs and your heating systems online, retrofit and new systems. Then we offer intelligent apps to basically control these systems and make them run more efficiently. And these apps work like a digital assistant. So essentially, it's not a remote control for a heating system, but it's more like an algorithm working for you in the background. So you get the comfort and you get the savings. And essentially, as a consumer, you don't have to lift a finger, right? And the third layer is that we offer services on top of this stack. So essentially, making sure that everything runs smoothly. We don't want the consumer to take care about energy buying, energy selling. We don't want the consumer to take care about that the heating system runs flawlessly. We send installers if there's a problem, for example. And all of this basically to, in a vertically integrated scenario, make sure that the customer doesn't need to worry about anything. And you could also call it heat as a service if you want. Just like Drive Now on the street, everybody knows that you buy 1 minute of mobility. At Taro, you buy 1 minute of a heated or nicely cooled room or home or house. And this is what we offer globally. Essentially, we focus on European markets, especially 13 markets in Europe. We've been around since 2011, 170 employees in Munich and offices across Europe. Yeah, so that's us.
Great, wonderful. Philipp, Sonnen.
Yeah, Sonnen is basically on the electricity side. So what we do is, first of all, we are selling hardware to customers who do have a solar panel. The hardware is actually an energy storage product, so we enable people, first of all, to store their own electricity. So if you have a solar panel on your roof and you're leaving and you go to work, and at night you come home, you can actually use and utilize your energy storage device in order to recoup the energy that you generated during the day for the night. That's the first thing that we have been doing since quite some years yet. And the second thing that we're doing is actually that we started to connect the power generator, which is the solar system, and the energy storage system in a virtual power plant. So we are enabling customers to share their electricity on a digital platform. So basically, if you have a surplus of electricity production in your home and you're not there, we will take care that someone else will be benefiting from the electricity that you're producing. So basically, we're not only enabling to make your own electricity, but we are enabling a community of people, we call it the Sonnen community, to power themselves. So they truly are prosumers. We are now active in Europe, in Northern America, in Australia as well. We have 500 people, and we are aiming for a revenue this year of about 100 million. And yeah, I think that's a rough overview.
Jesse, you are one of the managing directors, a general secretary, something like this. You could maybe tell us more of the Energy Web Foundation. And you're not a company, but you are really serving this sector as well. Maybe you can tell us more about it. And you are very involved in blockchain. So this topic has arrived in the energy sector as well, right?
Slowly but surely, yes. Yeah. So Energy Web Foundation is a Swiss-based nonprofit organization. We also have a 25-person developer hub here in Berlin. And the topic of the foundation is to bring an open-source blockchain specifically for the energy sector. And the context for why that's important, David, you basically said it. The grid is changing. Most of the value in the past has been with these large upstream, large centralized thermal power plants and all the infrastructure, and it's changing. A lot of the value is going more towards the customer. But I have some bad news. From our perspective, we're mostly comprised of both energy and blockchain experts. We don't think all of these wonderful tools and technologies that are being deployed at the grid edge, we don't actually have an architecture for the grid that can enable all of those devices and customers to communicate with each other in support of something like a 100% renewable energy future under the existing architecture of the grid. That is our hypothesis as a company. However, we do think that blockchain technology can form sort of the digital platform for global electric grids everywhere because it's a much more secure way to digitize assets, to establish trust between those assets, and completely re-architect the grid to go from the bottom up instead of the top down. So that is the purpose of our organization. We're an open source software development project. We're building an open source blockchain for the energy sector. We have 70 companies who have jumped in with us, ranging from the dinosaurs, the old energy sector, some of the utilities that you mentioned, and then also the disruptors, right? The folks on this stage and others, to try and bring them together to figure out how we can bring blockchain to energy.
Great. So we have very interesting business models representing up here, and you are really disrupting your particular niches and markets, but you are disrupting a market where big utilities have been around already. So how do you see the future? Will they actually join the game as well? Will they just I don't know, just wait and see? Do they try to push you aside? Would you see them more as a partner, or would they actually be an exit option for you as well? That they are joining forces with you guys. How do you see the future of the energy system and all these energy players? I don't know if anybody want to say something about that.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So, for example, we work with energy companies. It's one of our largest customer groups. And we've done so since, I don't know, 2012. Just to give you an example, so right now, if you're just an energy customer, you get one negative touch point per year, right? You get a bill, you get that bill shock. It's just really not a sustainable customer relationship that utility companies have had in the past. And now they're all transforming into becoming energy service companies. What we do is we deliver a co-branded solution where we basically give our smart thermostats, the apps and the services in a co-branded scenario to the customers of these utilities. What then happens is that we basically transform a commodity, or the energy consumption as a commodity, into a lifestyle product. So what happens now is that you get 2 positive touch points per week, for example. If people open the app, they see, I've saved a little bit of money, I've saved a little bit of energy, we give you tips on how to improve your climate at home. This is becoming now a truly meaningful customer relationship. And so what we see on the KPI side, for example, is if you bundle a product like Taro with an energy contract like gas or electricity, that churn rates on that contract are reduced by an average of 50%. On top of that, we increase the Net Promoter Score by about 25 points. And this is really awesome stuff for energy companies, right? So to answer your question, yes, energy companies do want to work with us, and we want to work with them. I think it's a win-win situation, and I think it's a huge market, and we're tackling it big time.
I think it depends on the business model. We have 2 utilities as our shareholders next to financial investors, so that's one touch point, obviously. On an operational level, it's difficult because it really depends on your strategy. We want to be the utility of the 21st century, so we actually really disrupt what they do, and we are very confident about the fact that we are much better at that consumer layer. They are better at other stuff. We are very good at the consumer layer. And one of the hypotheses that we had very much on day one was, for that kind of company, if you want to be that champion in the 21st century, you need to be really good at selling, planning, financing, installing and servicing hardware. And that's what we do, right? So it's really owning that entire value chain. And we tried it, in partnerships with the utilities, never worked out because effectively we have the same strategy.
Anybody else? Blockchain is really disrupting the whole billing system as well. But maybe I have one question for you as well, particular, because you really need a lot of energy as well, right, to calculate. So is there a certain rebound effect? Do we actually use more energy per kilowatt hour than we are actually trying to sell?
Yeah. Let me answer both. So before that one, on the relationship between current incumbents and disruptors, from our perspective, it's going to be a mix. These companies serve a key reliability function in the electricity sector right now. Somebody is going to have to build the copper that we send power across to get to all of our homes, even if the solutions delivered in those homes and businesses come from the disruptors. So in my opinion, and in our opinion, it's going to be a mix of the disruptors and the existing organizations in the future business model. On your question, it's sort of a common misconception. So Bitcoin, the blockchain everybody talks about, that's like Atari. We use a lot of Ataris, right? We need a PlayStation 4 to do all of the cool stuff that I'm talking about in the energy sector with blockchain technology. The Atari is very energy intensive, right? The Bitcoin network, I think, uses as much energy as the entire country of Ireland or something right now. That's the talking point. That is one way to achieve consensus on a blockchain. There are many other ways. Our blockchain uses a totally different consensus mechanism, whereby we're going to be powering energy transactions globally, and we use the equivalent amount of energy as a medium-sized office building instead of a medium-sized country. Right? So in that Atari to PlayStation evolution, this is where we are right now, but there's a lot of research going on in different ways to achieve consensus that are much, much more energy efficient.
All right, good. So a lot of these business models in the energy sector are very regulated, I would say. I mean, if I look at Sonnen, Philipp, for example, you are very much depending as well, or try to get independent at least as well from the regulatory framework, but you have a very, very different contexts in many different countries. How do you deal with that if you are scaling up? I mean, is this a constraint to actually scale up? Is this something where investors maybe as well have some doubts about the scalability of your business model?
I think that's a critical question for any energy startup, because national energy markets are very highly regulated, and I think it's very hard for startups to scale beyond one market. For us, the main focus has been to prove that our business model is working in more than one market. So we are now operating in, the microphone is changing, operating in Germany, Italy, Austria, Switzerland, the US, and in Australia. And the key, I think, the key proof point for us has been that we are already quite independent from for example, feed-in tariffs, yeah? And we are not independent from regulation that is concerning the grid. If somebody in California says there's only one grid operator, there's only one utility, this is going to stop our business. Yeah? So California, for example, for us is one of the markets that we cannot provide sharing platforms in. We can sell the hardware, but we cannot build a virtual power plant. However, if you look at the macroeconomics, there are more and more markets coming in. The higher the price of electricity for a private consumer, the better our pitch. The higher the volatility within the grid, the better gets our pitch of the flexibility that we can provide to the grid. A good example is always Australia. Australia is a bit like the future scenario from my perspective of Europe. They have more than 2 million PV systems. With less than a quarter or about a quarter of the population of Germany. So they have the highest penetration of solar in the world. So we basically look at markets for three major items. One is price of electricity in the retail market for residential customers. The other one is penetration of renewables. If there is not enough renewable flexibility in the market, we have no add value. For example, if we would enter the Russian market, there wouldn't be any case. And the last one is the regulatory one. So are we allowed to operate with a prosumer platform as a utility?
So in the case with taro, I would say that one of the barriers of scaling in the past or in the beginning when we started the business was not so much regulatory but more technical. So essentially in Europe you have a hugely fragmented landscape of interfaces to heating systems, heat pumps and air conditioning systems. So what we did is we had a huge team in the beginning really engineer all these interfaces to be able to interconnect to all these systems, essentially retrofit and new systems, which is a technical requirement for rollout, right? So this is why we're now in the Apple Store. You can buy a taro in the Apple Store and just self-install it in your home. There's also a reason why we chose a direct-to-consumer approach to kind of move around the regulatory challenges and really focus on the technical stuff. With that, we've built up a great barrier of entry, which is why you don't see many smart thermostat companies challenging us right now.
Okay. So today we talk about digitalization in a scale from 1 to 10. Where, Philipp, would you see our energy sector being digitalized, considering as well the fact that at the energy exchange in Leipzig, they trade energy blocks within 15 minutes. We have very, very inflexible tariffs, energy tariffs in the market. On the other hand, we see from a technology side, there will be no issue at all to trade energy within nanoseconds and have flexible tariffs, for example, as well. Where do you see, in terms of what still can be done, where do you see the big challenges, the big opportunities in further digitalizing our sector?
Well, I think we're still very much at the beginning, so whether that's a 1 or a 2, I don't know. But if you just take smart meter rollout, and I know all these topics, by the way, in the energy world are rather nerdy, but that's the way it is in our industry. So smart meter rollout, Germany's terrible, right? It's one of these regulated efforts that just don't happen or they're very slow. And if we all had smart meters in our homes, plenty of those layer consumer models, applications that would actually just happen very quickly. If you take power consumption for tenants in multifamily homes with PV systems on the rooftop, also a rather regulated market. If you take the balancing power markets, power to heat, very interesting for us, too regulated. We can't do the primary reserve at the moment. So very much at the beginning.
Okay. Any other comments or?
I would share that perspective, and especially if we zoom out globally for a minute. I just moved from Colorado in the United States to Europe, and my house still had somebody coming to my home and actually doing a meter read manually and then manually entering into a spreadsheet every week, right? So a lot of the world is still like that, if they even have a grid, right? Forget digitization, there's no copper in some places, and let alone natural gas heating solutions, et cetera. So if we zoom out globally, definitely 1 or 2 to 10. But I think that's also an opportunity. There is, from our perspective, a right way to digitize the grid, and there's a wrong way. The right way is to do it securely so that there's no single or a few points of failure. What if we can digitize the grid in a more distributed, decentralized fashion so that there is no single point of failure? The traditional way to digitization in the electric sector so far has been take a large IT company, come into a grid, deploy smart meters and hundreds or thousands of other assets, put an internet connection on them or a cellular connection, and have a single entity in charge of managing those assets. We don't think that's the right architecture, mainly from a security perspective. So it's really an opportunity that we're actually perhaps at 1 or 2 to 10 at this stage.
Yeah, I fully agree. I mean, if you zoom out a little bit more, I think it's worth mentioning the sector coupling. I mean, what we all, have discussed for a little while, basically bringing together heat, electricity, traffic, and the industry as the main areas in the energy market. And essentially raising the efficiency and matching supply and demand between these entities in a real-time scenario. So to enable things like demand response, to stabilize the grid, to have real-time energy prices based on demand and response, or on supply and demand. And I think this is where it's going. Another crucial factor, I think, is the seamless integration of repair and maintenance services. So essentially working with local service providers, such as Thermondo, for example.
We are national.
Exactly, that's right. Touché. So working with companies like Thermondo to make these things happen and make sure that, for example, installers can use predictive maintenance. So they can see from a connected heating system, it's going to fail with a high probability in the next 2 weeks. They know exactly what the problem is. They can buy the right spare part. They can go to the consumer and fix it at once before it gets cold. This is really cool. So in the end, it's about raising the awareness with the consumer, raising the value with the consumer, and not talking so much about the architectural and macro trends, but really coming down to understanding the needs of all of us, right? And making it happen with simple solutions. Save energy is a strong customer value. Self-installation is a strong driver. Energy savings guarantees that we, for example, offer. You can return the product if it doesn't work for you, you don't save enough. And yeah, just execute and fight hard.
Just one, maybe a tangible example. Today is a very sunny and decently windy day. I guarantee you, as we speak, Germany is either giving away power to our neighboring countries, so literally physically pushing it out to Poland and to Holland, or even paying money for it. So that's the situation we're in right now, right? So we're because it's still damp, right? So we're not good yet in matching supply and demand.
If you have any questions, please prepare yourself. Maybe I'll ask one more question, and then if there are any, please let me know, and then we can open up the discussion here as well. Otherwise, I have a few more questions as well. We see there are some upsides here in terms of there's a lot of opportunity in terms of digitalization, our sector as well. You all have been very successful in raising money. I mean, I think it was about 25+ million. Thermondo, you raised more than 50 million already, and you guys already raised more than 180 million already. So when you talk to investors, and what kind of story do you actually use? I mean, do you use the story of there's a lot of upside in the energy sector? You talk about all this nerdy stuff about, I don't know, smart meter rollout and all these activities, or do you position yourself more as a, let's say, an e-commerce platform? You try to pitch yourself in a different context. The question I actually have is, do we as a sector, do we need to position ourselves a lot more as, let's say, a clean tech or energy sector? Or would you see yourself more as being part of a, let's say, fintech solution or some e-commerce solution, etc.?
I think that the most money at the moment, and I think everyone is right now having the same thoughts, at least you two and I, it really is about customer lifetime value. The question really is at the moment, anyone who wants to really show that they can make money with distributed assets, they have to invest in IT and they have to invest in installation, one way or the other. So you have quite some sunk cost if you do that. Yeah, so basically Sonnen is building, and I think the others as well, we are building basically our own platform back to back, yeah, so front to back. So we have our own IT system, we have every device that we are hooking up from an electric car, which is another very important factor in the game that's coming in now, to the solar system, to our battery systems, but also to heat pumps, which is a load efficiency, effectively. We have to provide the IT infrastructure, because the point has been taken here before, there is no IT infrastructure. So if you have the best blockchain in the world, there's no value added to it, because you cannot manage anything, right? So basically now it's all about our story, and I think for many others as well, is how can you actually create a system where you have a first ticket that you're selling to a customer, and an average ticket that we sell is 24,000, including the solar system. And then afterwards, how can you utilize these assets to make additional reoccurring revenues? And I mean, there are many aspects on how to do that, but the most interesting is how can you provide flexibility to the grid? How can you actually use electric cars that are bundled, storage devices that are bundled, heating devices that are bundled, and actually swallow excess electricity when it's there. Yeah? So this is how we raise the money at the moment, because our investors believe if you are capable of providing a scalable system, plug and play is not as easy with thermostats, or other way around. Thermostats are pretty easier than electrical or even heating devices. But this is the play that we are at the moment positioning and selling, and that's also what the strategic investors want to see. They want to test how does that work, and they want to see a fully integrated platform. But that takes a lot of money to do, because there is nothing you can utilize at the moment. So you have to do everything on your own.
And first of all, you always raise on traction, certainly at the maturity we're at. Secondly, we actually raised 52 million plus 20 million debt so far to finance our assets, because 30% of our customers don't own the asset anymore. We own it and we manage it for them. So essentially, we all build networks. Right? So you build a network, we all build networks. And everybody in the energy industry wants to be that premier contact to that homeowner. Because we all agree on the fact that in the next 10, 15 years, there will be all these beautiful new services coming up. There will be a lot of change, certainly from a homeowner's perspective. Because I guarantee you, and we're installing a heating system every 30 minutes, I guarantee you that all those that we install today, all these customers will most likely, that will be the last fossil fuel-based system in their life. And secondly, over the duration of our relationship of the next 10, 15 years, they will under guarantee buy an e-vehicle, right? So just that. And very likely they will be buying a PV system because it makes economic sense, and very likely they will be buying some sort of storage, whether it will be a smart water storage or a battery or the car itself. So that's a lot of capex for the next years, right? And a lot of ARPU, if you think of monthly revenues. And we all want that. And sometimes we work together, and sometimes we talk a lot and we struggle to find a way that it's a win-win situation. But in the end, that's what it's all about in the energy world.
Yeah, I mean, fully agree. I think investor appetite comes with traction, with consumer traction. Consumer traction comes with great quality and a strong customer value. You have to have a strong value proposition, and you have to have a good product. A good product for us is simple. It delivers a high degree of comfort. I think that's what it's all about. The green aspect alone won't float the whole, concept. I think you have to have a valid business model, obviously.
And maybe to just give you one picture. So yesterday on stage, Dara, the CEO of Uber, said it. What happens after the push of the button, that's really complex, right? And our companies, we have basically spent the last years on what's after the push of the button, right? What happens? So we are building a nationwide network of digitized installers. We are talking asset-free, inventory-free supply chain here. And that's very complex. That's like if Deliveroo had started hiring chefs on day one and talking about recipes, but they don't do that. They focus on the push of that button, right? So energy models are complex because operations are complex and they're deep.
All right. We got 50 minutes left. We can continue, or maybe you have some questions in the audience. You had a lot of time to prepare, so I guess there are...
My name is Axel, and I'm working for ABB, I see as one limitation factor the installers out in the market. I think some of you are dealing directly with the consumers, but if you're going to the grid and the integration network of the homes, I think we have also to work with the professional installers. And I'm not sure whether these group is already ready for the digitalization, or the complete group is ready. And if you want to change this within the next 10 years, and the speed is going quite fast, we have to do a lot. How do you see this?
Philipp, you're probably the best one to answer.
I guess installers I should answer. So yesterday I had the CSO of one of the largest OEMs in our market, so one of the large heating manufacturers in our office for a meeting. And they say, if you stick to Germany, we have 350,000 educated technicians in this country, in our trade. And they said, no matter what policy making would do, you know, we simply don't have more people, right? So the bottleneck is the number of people. And I said, well, actually, our efficiency per man year, so our revenue per man year, is 2.5 times higher than that of the comparable largest bucket of other installation companies, conventional installation companies. So based on technology, based on process excellence and digitalization, we have increased the throughput of that trained person by factor 2.5. So that's, I think, so we could be at the throughput of 800,000 people, I guess, right? But you're right, we all have to invest into training. We are having 13 apprentices, for instance, at our company, and we have to make that trade more attractive. We're living in a society where, when I was in university, it was 2 million people studying, being students in this country. Today it's 4 million, so it has lost its appeal, and so that's a tough one, right? And we need people that still love to work with their hands. It's true.
And you always need to differentiate, obviously, between the heating side and the electrician side. And you are probably also hinting to the electrician side, because it's true, we could not even work with one national installer in Germany, because you have the distributed grid operators. They actually decide who is capable of installing and actually activating an asset. Yeah, so even if we would hire, centralized in Berlin, 1,000 electricians, they would not have licenses for over 800 DSOs in Germany. And this is the same picture in Italy, it's the same picture in Australia, so I'm absolutely with you that that's one of the bottlenecks that is a limitation to the market very much, and that's driving the price. It's driving the price because they have opportunity cost, especially if the economy goes well. Yeah, so to be honest, if really somebody wants to push a button there, it needs to be regulatory. Yeah, because they need to be capable of having national installer companies when it comes to electricians. There are none for a reason, because you don't have the certification. You cannot get the best Polish company and have them install across Europe. Yeah, it's not going to work. At least you'll need local assistance.
Any other question? Otherwise, I would like to ask the question that, I mean, some of you, you're actually building platforms. I mean, you have a platform, you talk about this one button you need to push in the future. Sonnen is moving to this direction. We see that other startups are coming out, like solar.de, who are providing ready key turned PV systems for the clients. Do you all see yourself as, well, partners in building up this sector right now, or would you see as well in midterm and long term some sort of consolidation as well? Because at the end of the day, you all have the same touch points to the clients. It might be maybe easier as well that they just go via one platform and use all these different services, maybe also including any other, you know, installer services like painting and whatever. Is that something where you see, well, as a homeowner, you would probably just only, I don't know, maybe so you would not say this would be the direction to go in?
I think there are different layers, right? I mean, first of all, there is a heating sector and there is an electrician sector, and they are separated in every way. A group of people, permits, and so on. I think that the heating sector, the conventional heating sector, gas and oil, will switch to electricity. I think that's something that the industry would agree upon. If they are just asking themselves, is it going to take 5 years, 10 years, 15 years? So I think, yes, at some point.
Which is a long time period for a startup, by the way.
Yes, absolutely. But I mean, for the strategic investors, that's the question that they're asking themselves. So I would see there is, when it comes, if you have electrified heatings, yes, then we could use the same installer base and to be actually, if we look 5 years in the future, if you take Taro, Thermondo, by the time probably also an installer that is providing electrical services, where I think is a huge growth opportunity for Thermondo, and take the Sonnen business model and put them together, you would really have the utility of the future. So I think the key point will be at some point, if either a strategic investor or even an M&A approach will at some point enable different specialized layers to really work together. Yeah? Because Taro is spreading out European-wide, They are getting lots of data. It's very easy for them to get into the home because the installation hurdle is very low. And it's a very seamless, easy process to get the thermostat running. Thermondo is building something which is incredible, which is an installer network with no one else is having it. So a national installer, there is none. Yeah, it's basically only Thermondo who's capable of doing that. If they are capable of also supplying electricity services, that will be really a game changer for them as well. And if then you could actually activate also the customer lifetime value of the hardware approaches that we bring in from solar, but also the storage side and especially the utility platform, which is ready to go. We invested millions in building a digital utility and a virtual power plant. But if you put them together, you truly would have the utility of the future. And I think, I hope that we will see the day at some point that something like this happens, because this could really attract millions of customers within a time frame of a couple of years. Yeah.
And I totally second that. So take Switzerland, for example. 90% of new heating boiler installations in Switzerland are heat pumps right now. So it's about the electrification, obviously, of the heat sector that is happening in a very fast pace right now, and have it installed by Thermondo, have it controlled by Taro, and connect the Sonnen system to it, and then you got your solution. So in the next 10 years, we're obviously on a cooperative way. In the end, we're all fighting about the customer relationship. This is the end goal, right? But I believe we're disrupting a huge sector. It is going to take some time. We go step by step, and let's just all fight for it together.
There's also an emerging digital economy. We're talking mostly physical. Once those assets are in the ground, there's massive opportunities for new business models on the IT side. So for example, just to run with that, okay, we have the excess sun with the example you were running with. Now we have a home that has a Sonnen battery, a flexible heating and cooling system, and a simple app, right? And the app is that Uber app that basically says, I am willing to have my house eat up 1 degree C in order so me to be able to trade with my neighbor, right? And the other button they have to hit is, you know, how aggressive do I want that trading scheme to be? That's it. And so it's just kind of like an economy mode on a car, right? Now behind the scenes there could be 10 companies offering different services. There could be a company that uses AI to determine the most effective trading scheme. There could be another company that's offering an insurance product in case the trades go up or down below certain thresholds. So there's this entire digital economy, and also the language we're using is 21st century language around business models. If you're a blockchain believer, which I'm starting to become, there is an entire new lexicon around the token economy. One of our companies is called Share and Charge. They are bringing blockchain technology to electric vehicles, right, for a lot of the reasons that we've talked about, basically to manage them. That company uses 3 tokens on a blockchain software stack to manage their product, right? So there's this entire new way of thinking about decentralized business models that nobody's really experimenting with yet. So I would say 5 years from now, you know, if some of this digitization happens and we have assets in the field, there'll be a whole new way to talk about some of the new business models that are coming out.
And maybe the last point here, financing, right? So all energy business is hardware business almost, not all, but a lot, and it needs to be financed, right? So we need to decouple the innovation of the hardware bit with the availability of liquidity in private households. So we have raised those 20 million project finance debt, and interestingly, when we started, people said no way that conservative German homeowners ever going to go for an SLA. So a managed service contract for your heating system, and today it's a bit more than 30% every month doing that. And we feel we can drive this up to 50, 55%, and then the others, the remaining ones, go for 2-year service contracts, which is the industry standard, right? So effectively, we're basically selling SLAs to almost 100% to our customers. And if you do that, then and if you finance it also for them, and then you open up the also like green bonds markets, alternative financing markets, then you can really we think you can provide an extra boost to that change.
All right, so if you all join forces, include blockchain technology, this is the perfect storm actually to wipe away all the existing energy utilities, right? So we are already here. So if there's somebody out there, you know, trying to put all these companies into one framework, this is going to be a very, very huge opportunity here. And I think there's some seriousness to that as well. So. Yeah, and I don't know, any other question here, please?
How do you see the future of energy storage going? Are they going to be localized, or are they going to be central batteries? How do you see the technology?
That's my question. Okay, obviously I have to take this. Yeah, to be honest, the biggest competition for decentralized storage will be the electric car. So I think that if you look at the scale of the markets now, it's a niche market anyways, right? So we will see, especially in those markets with a big feed-in tariff population, yeah, so there are 1.6 million solar panels, only solar systems here in Germany, and millions in other markets. There will be a big need for decentralized storage from our perspective. However, loads from electric cars, but also especially heat pumps, are, when it comes to the negative loads that you're providing for flexibility, are much cheaper. Yeah. So I think the real issue also for us at Sonnen, for us it was always a question: what could be the hardware asset that we use in order to ride into the home and equip everything with the IT, where we then actually can connect the electric car, the heat pump, and all of the other loads that are available. Because in the end, we are just looking for loads that we can manage. Yeah. To enable that click on the button. And the question is always: do you use a thermostat to ride in? Do you use energy storage plus solar to ride in and actually conquer the home, yeah, and also be capable of investing into the IT technology? But to answer your question, there will be a very big market for decentralized, but it is going to be in the better the IT infrastructure in a grid, the more competition will come in the future, especially from loads, because the best way of flexibility is to use existing loads.
Any other question?
Yeah, Philipp briefly talked about financing. When you look especially at energy storage, how much of a constraint do you think is financing for a larger adoption?
Which Philipp? This one.
Oh.
This one? Okay, don't worry. But I have a different opinion on financing than Philipp does. Yeah, I believe that if you look at I share the opinion that there needs to be a service, right? So we are very much trying to dilute our product down to something that we call Sonnen Flat, which basically says this is what you pay per month, and that's it. You don't have to take care of anything, because we don't think that people really want to sit with an app and decide whether they want to, train an AI to compete in something. Yeah. So we believe it needs to be very easy. I personally believe that in the German-speaking regions, there is very, very cheap debt available to homeowners. And for us to build the processes to really pull this via a special purpose vehicle and go into a long-time service contract, we can still do that with an external debt provider. But I share the position of Philipp from Thermondo that it's about the service. So for me, it's more about getting a solution. And there might be parts of financing in it, but at the moment, especially if you look at the credit level of German homes, they can afford the kind of debt, and they will get it anywhere, and they will get it at a very, very low interest, and it takes out complexity for us at the moment. Yeah, but still, I think the point from Thermondo also is it's about just for the first time telling customers that they could effectively switch from their gas bill into a service contract, where effectively financing is a part. I would only not agree that necessarily you need to do the financing yourself, but Philipp.
Well, it depends on the product. So all our funds are originally KfW funds and fall under a certain, obviously subsidized debt scheme in Germany. And effectively our cost of capital is negative. So what we basically did, if you want macroeconomically, there's a very attractive program that as often, because it's a government-driven program, it's very complex, so we simplified, we are the single point of contact for the consumer by having that debt in our SPV and thus being able to provide it for that asset. But what it does for us is it's a 10-year contract. So for 10 years, now from a capital markets point of view, that's a very attractive business, of course.
All right, one last question. If there aren't two, then I would take the one down there.
Sure. So if you take a regular new heating system, for example, and you connect it via a digital interface, for example, you get, I think it's about 20,000 data points out of that boiler that gives you tons of information on how the system is running, certain temperature points, pump speeds, etc. And so what we've built is essentially a huge database of feeding systems and interface connections that we now truly understand. So we get a full data dump. We use data analytics to derive learnings from this data pool. And we then supply this in a graphical user interface, for example, to installers to work with that. So right now, we integrate installers directly into the platform and also via utilities to provide the service to them.
All right, so we are very short on time. The next group is starting very soon. Thank you very much. I think everybody else will be still here the whole day. So if you have any questions, please just approach us. And great, thank you very much to all of you up here as well. Thank you.